someone still thinks of you. Maybe you don't know it, maybe you haven't felt it in a long time, maybe your days have carried you far from the moments where your lives once touched. But somewhere, quietly, softly, without fanfare, your memory lives inside someone because you taught them something they didn't know they needed. You taught them that love, in its truest form, can be a place where the heart rests without fear. And even if you don't think it matters anymore, even if you've convinced yourself you were forgettable, even if life has changed in ways you never expected, the truth hasn't changed. Someone still carries you gently inside the safest part of their heart. You didn't just pass through their world. You softened it. You didn't just appear for a moment. You impressed upon them the possibility of peace. In a life full of noise, you were a quiet room they didn't know they needed. In a world full of wounds, you were a hand that didn't tremble. You showed them patience where others offered pressure. You offered understanding where they expected judgment. You listened in moments where they feared silence. You taught them that affection does not have to be earned with suffering. You taught them that love does not have to feel like walking on broken glass. You may think you were ordinary in the way you cared, but ordinary care doesn't stay like this. Ordinary kindness doesn't echo years later. Ordinary presence doesn't create safety in a life that was starved for it. Only something remarkable lingers quietly in the soul long after people part ways. Only something rare is remembered not because of what it demanded, but because of how gently it unfolded. Someone still thinks of you when life becomes too loud. When they question their worth. When they're afraid of trusting again. When the world reminds them of its cruelty. Because you were the proof that not everyone wants to hurt them, that not every connection is dangerous, that not every person hides a storm behind a smile. You were a moment of warmth in a long winter. And even if you think what you offered was small or simple or obvious, know this, to someone who had forgotten how to breathe. Even a single moment of safety can feel like an entire lifetime of healing. There are people who come into your life and teach you lessons through pain, through loss, through the sting of disappointment. And then there are people like you, people who teach through gentleness. People who remind others that softness is not weakness, that kindness is not naive, that empathy is not something that gets used up but something that grows stronger with practice. You didn't demand to be remembered. Your intention was never to be unforgettable. But authenticity has a way of staying in places you never expected. You may be wondering why any of this matters now. You may have drifted far from those chapters of your life. Or perhaps you've grown into someone who doesn't always see their own impact. Maybe you forget the way your presence transformed people. Maybe you've learned to downplay your own goodness. Maybe you've convinced yourself that you didn't do anything extraordinary. But someone out there is living a gentler life because of you. Someone out there is loving more bravely because your kindness showed them how. Someone out there handles hearts differently because they once held yours with reverence. You taught them that the right kind of love feels like a warm light, not a burning flame meant to consume. You taught them that compassion is not a weakness but a strength that heals. You taught them that when someone truly cares, they do not raise their voice, they raise your spirit. You taught them that connection is not supposed to feel like survival. And because of that, their future relationships, their choices, their boundaries, and even their self-worth carry traces of what you showed them. Sometimes the most powerful acts of love are the ones we don't even realize we're offering. A comfortable silence. A steady presence. A soft "I understand." A patient pause. A willingness to stay when someone expected you to walk away. A moment where you held space for their vulnerability. A gesture that told them they were safe. A truth spoken gently when lies could have been easier. These moments shape people in ways you cannot measure. And maybe life didn't unfold the way you imagined. Maybe the connection didn't last. Maybe the story ended earlier than you hoped. But endings don't erase impact. Separation doesn't undo the lessons you planted in the soil of someone's heart. Not every meaningful connection is meant to last forever. Some are meant to open a door inside someone that had been locked for years. Some are meant to show someone how they deserve to be loved. Some are meant to shift a person just enough that they walk into their future stronger and softer at the same time. Someone still thinks of you not in longing, not in regret, not in pain, but in gratitude. In quiet reflection. In moments when they realize they survived something they once feared they never would. In moments when they recognize themselves becoming gentler. In moments when they choose a kind partner over a chaotic one. In moments when they catch themselves loving with patience instead of fear. You helped rewrite their understanding of what love could feel like, and maybe no one taught you the same. Maybe you learned all of this the hard way. Maybe your softness was shaped by the absence of safety in your own past. Maybe you taught someone else the very thing you never received yourself. That happens more often than people admit. The ones who offer the safest love often learned its value by surviving its opposite. The ones who treat people gently often know too well how it feels when someone doesn't. The ones who create calm for others often carry storms inside, but even if no one gave you the version of love you offered, you didn't let that stop you. You still chose kindness. You still chose patience. You still chose to give someone the safety you never found. And that matters just as deeply. Because love given freely, especially when it wasn't given to you, becomes an act of courage. You didn't just care for someone. You broke a cycle, and cycles don't break silently. They echo. They ripple. They reach further than you think. Someone out there is loving differently because of your example. Someone is more emotionally aware because of conversations you once had. Someone is choosing partners who treat them with respect because you showed them what respect looks like. Someone is unlearning fear because you replaced it with gentleness. Someone is healing because you were safe, and here's something else: you deserve the same kind of love you offered. You deserve a heart that doesn't make you question how loudly you're allowed to speak. You deserve a presence that doesn't withdraw when life gets heavy. You deserve affection that doesn't punish you for existing. You deserve tenderness that doesn't come with terms and conditions. You deserve the same safety you once gave someone else, and although you may not know it now, someone out there will one day feel about you in the present the way someone else feels about you in memory. Because when a person like you exists, someone who naturally, instinctively teaches safety, your impact never ends with one person. You are not a single moment of kindness. You are a consistent force of softness in a world that forgets how much it needs it. Yes, someone still thinks of you. They think of how your presence made their life brighter. How your words softened the places they thought would stay hard forever. How your laughter made heavy days feel lighter. How your trust gave them courage. How your acceptance made them feel whole. They think of you not because they are stuck in the past, but because your influence lives on in their present. It's possible that you're going through your own difficult chapter now. Maybe you're doubting your worth. Maybe you're questioning your path. Maybe you're struggling to see yourself clearly. If so, let this truth anchor you: you have already made someone's world safer. You have already changed someone's story. You have already healed something inside another person simply by being yourself. And that means your existence carries far more weight than you realize. Not everyone gets to be remembered for softness. Not everyone gets to be the quiet miracle in someone's life. But you do. And you were. And you still are. Somewhere in someone's heart, the memory of you still whispers, love can be safe. And that is no small legacy. That is no small gift. That is no small truth. You may never know the full extent of how deeply you mattered. But someone out there does. And because of you, they love themselves more gently. They trust more carefully. They choose more wisely. They breathe more deeply. They carry less fear, all because you once showed them that love doesn't have to hurt. That, in itself, makes you unforgettable. And even if you don't hear their voice, even if no message reaches you, even if the distance has grown long between you, know that somewhere, quietly and sincerely, someone still thinks of you with warmth, gratitude, and a tenderness shaped by the safety you once offered. And that is a beautiful truth about you. A truth that remains, a truth that stays. They think of you in the in-between moments, too. The moments when life isn't dramatic or painful or extraordinary, but simply unfolding. When they're washing dishes and a song plays that you once mentioned you liked. When they see a scene in a movie that reminds them of something you once said. When they're walking down a street and notice a kindness that mirrors yours. These moments are small, almost invisible, but each carries the quiet echo of you. Not in a way that holds them back, but in a way that lifts them gently forward, because safety, once experienced, doesn't leave the heart. It becomes a reference point, a compass, a memory that softly reminds them, this is how it felt when I didn't have to brace myself. And you were that feeling. You were the calm in a life that had taught them to anticipate storms. You were the steady ground beneath feet that had always expected to fall through the cracks. It wasn't just what you said to them. It was how you made them feel, seen, held, allowed, understood. There are people who offer loud love, dramatic love, love that burns brilliantly but briefly. And then there was you, a gentle flame that didn't scorch, a warmth that didn't demand, a presence that didn't confuse. Your love, whether romantic, friendly, or simply human, held a purity that felt rare. You may think you weren't enough. You may believe you didn't stay long enough or give enough or speak enough. But hearts don't measure love in time. They measure it in impact. They measure it in softness. They measure it in how safe they felt opening themselves fully without fear of being broken. And by that measure, you were more than enough. Someone out there learned how to communicate because you listened. They learned how to apologize because you forgave. They learned how to open up because you held space for their vulnerability. They learned how to set boundaries because you respected theirs. They learned how to value themselves because you treated them like they mattered. You became a turning point in the way they love, even if they never said it aloud, and maybe you've wondered whether you made a difference. Maybe you've questioned your worth during your own quiet nights. Maybe you've carried the belief that you fade from hearts easily, that people forget you once they walk away. But that belief is untrue. You don't fade. You leave impressions, soft ones, yes, but ones that last. You leave warmth in places that once felt cold. You leave hope in hearts that once felt heavy. It's possible that you see your past connection with them as something unfinished, unresolved, or imperfect. But the truth is, not every bond is meant to stay. Some are meant to be remembered. Some are meant to teach. Some are meant to guide. Some are meant to prepare someone for a future version of love that will make more sense than the past could. And you played your part beautifully. You didn't break them. You didn't betray them. You didn't tear them down. You didn't become another wound they had to stitch shut. You became a reference for what love should feel like. And you must understand how rare that is. Most people learn about safety only after they've been hurt. But this person learned it because of you, not in spite of you. Your presence in their life might have been brief, but its meaning was vast. It was enough to shift their understanding of themselves. Enough to show them that they deserve gentleness. Enough to prove that love doesn't need to be loud to be real. Enough to teach them that emotional security is not a luxury, it's a right. And perhaps you have grown since those days. Perhaps you've carried your own heartbreaks, your own disappointments, your own silent battles. But don't underestimate the version of you who existed then, the version who offered safety without even thinking about it. That version of you was powerful. And they still are, because that energy still lives within you. Someone thinks back to you and smiles softly, not because they want the past again, but because they're grateful the past included you. They remember their own transformation, the way their shoulders felt lighter, the way their heart felt steadier, the way their fears quieted in your presence. And they realized that you were someone they didn't know they needed until they met you. You didn't just teach them that love can be safe. You taught them that they themselves could be loved safely. That they weren't too much. That their emotions weren't burdens. That their silence wasn't emptiness. That their scars weren't flaws. That their softness wasn't foolishness. That they were worthy of tenderness, and even now, somewhere out there, they carry that lesson into their life. Into their relationships. Into their choices. Into their healing. Into their sense of self. Into the way they show up for the people they care about. Into the way they allow others to show up for them. You were a catalyst for that growth. A quiet guide. A warm reminder. A safe place they still revisit in memory, not to dwell, but to ground themselves. They don't cling to you. They don't ache for you. They simply remember you with gratitude because you gave them something real, and maybe one day, someone else will think of you this way too, someone in your future. Someone who will see your tenderness not as a temporary gift but as a lifelong blessing. Someone who will give back the safety you've always given others. Someone who will reflect your softness with their own. Someone who will hold your heart the way you once held theirs, gently, honestly, and without hesitation. But until that day comes, know this. The love you offered was not wasted. The care you gave did not disappear. The safety you created did not evaporate. It lives on, in someone's memory, in someone's healing, in someone's story. And that is a legacy of the heart that few people ever get to have. You mattered. You still matter. And someone out there still feels the echo of your presence in the quietest, most meaningful ways. And so this is where the story settles, not in dramatic reunions, not in longing, not in unfinished chapters, but in quiet truth. The truth that what you gave was real. The truth that your presence shaped someone's life in ways you may never fully see. The truth that you are remembered for something gentle, something rare, something healing. Someone still carries you in the part of their heart where the world feels safe. Not because they couldn't move on, but because what you gave them helped them move forward. They don't clutch the memory of you with pain, they hold it with gratitude. They remember you the way people remember the first warm day after a long winter, not as a season that stayed, but as a moment that reminded them spring was possible, and that is the beauty of your impact. You didn't demand anything. You didn't take anything. You didn't complicate their heart. You simply made room for calm where there had once been turbulence. You brought clarity where there had been confusion. You brought softness where there had been fear. That kind of presence is not forgotten, even when people go their separate ways. It becomes part of who they become. You may never know how often your memory steadied them on days they felt fragile. You may never know how many decisions they made differently because of you. You may never know how many times they whispered to themselves, "I deserve better," because you once treated them as if they did. You may never know how much you helped them believe in love again, not fantasy love, not chaotic love, but real, grounded, safe love. But they know. And because they know, pieces of you live on in their choices, their kindness, their gentleness with others, and their gentleness with themselves. And when their life continues to unfold, when they love again, when they build new connections, when they grow into a version of themselves they once feared they could never be, some part of that growth will always trace back to the space you once made for them. The space where they felt seen. The space where they felt unjudged. The space where they felt enough. The space where they felt safe. That is the quiet truth about you. Your presence leaves people better than you found them, and maybe you don't always feel that way. Maybe you've had days where you questioned your impact or wondered whether your softness made any difference. Maybe you've looked at your reflection and doubted your own worth. But hear this now, clearly and without hesitation: the love you give does not disappear into the void. It grows in the people who receive it. It shapes them. It heals them. It lasts. Someone still thinks of you when they need a reminder that good people exist. When they need proof that kindness is not a myth. When they need reassurance that trust is possible. When they need to remember that love does not have to be painful. Your memory is not a wound, it is a comfort. Not a shadow, it is a light. Not a longing, it is a gratitude. And even though their life has moved forward, even though your paths may never cross again, even though the chapter with your name in it is already written, they carry you with a gentle, sincere warmth. A warmth that will never burn out, because you weren't a fleeting spark. You were a quiet flame that brought light without taking anything away. In their story, you will always be the proof that love can be a safe place. The proof that trust can feel natural. The proof that affection doesn't have to hurt. The proof that some people are simply kind without agenda or conditions. And you will forever remain a soft corner of their memory, untouched by bitterness, unmarked by regret. And here is the part you must let sink deeply into your own heart: you, too, deserve someone who will think of you this way in the present, not just the past. Someone who will see the safety you offer and offer it back. Someone who will treat your softness as a treasure, not something to take advantage of. Someone who will hold your heart with the same gentleness you once held someone else's. And that person will exist. Not because you hope for it, but because you embody the kind of love that draws truth, sincerity, and tenderness. When that love arrives, it will not confuse you. It will not frighten you. It will not make you doubt yourself. It will feel like coming home. And everything you once gave away freely will return to you, not as a reward, but as a reflection of who you are. Until then, let this truth remain your comfort: you were unforgettable in the most beautiful way. Someone still thinks of you not as a lost love or an unfinished story, but as a gentle blessing. A moment of peace. A lesson in softness. A reminder that safe love is real, and if someone remembers you because you taught them that love can be safe, then you have already left a mark on the world far greater than you realize. Your chapter with them may have ended, but your impact never will, and that is the quiet, enduring, beautiful legacy of your heart.